Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the African in the New World, and we're fortunate to have with us to talk about the African in the New World, Dr. AAl-Hadid. Dr. AAl-Hadid is the chairperson of the Africana Studies Department at Tennessee State University. Of course, Dr. AAl-Hadid, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Thank you for having me back, Dr. Haney.
You know, Dr. AAl-Hadid, I think one of the most important topics that we can talk about dealing with the Africana Studies Department is to talk about the African in the New World. But before we get into that, let's have you to give us some information. You've been with us on a number of occasions, but still perhaps there are some people who might not know you. And so let's have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were significant in your life that eventually led you to the chairmanship of the Africana Studies Department at Tennessee State University. And in the meantime, you know, you can throw in some information about that department as you talk about that kind of information. And then we'll talk about the African in the New World and the related topics.
Yes, I'll start with the fact that I was born in Montgomery, Alabama, which is the cradle of the Confederacy. I grew up there, went to George Washington Carver High School, and I finished Alabama State University with a double major in sociology and psychology. While at Alabama State University and also at Carver, participated in the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 and also in the Selma and Montgomery March in 1965. After graduating from Alabama State, I went out to the West Coast and I enrolled at the University of California in Santa Barbara in graduate school, where I received my doctorate degree there in sociology and a master's degree in educational psychology. And I was one of the founders of the Department of Black Studies and the Black Culture Center at the University of California in Santa Barbara, which came online, I think, around 1971. And then I left there and came to Nashville, where I've been on the faculty at Tennessee State since 1973. I started a concept called the Great Debate, and it's an intellectual and cultural forum in which we look at the ideas of Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X to debate contemporary issues. We just recently had a debate on whether or not all TSU students should be required to take an African-centered course. This was last Friday. Became the chair of the Department of Africana Studies in the fall of 1994. The department has been in effect since that time. We have had 2 graduates. One graduated in May of this year and another one graduated in August of '97. We had our grand opening in 1995. We expect to have 3 graduates in May of 1999. And
so you're making tremendous progress in terms of bringing that as a concept onto the university campus at Tennessee State University.
Yes, sir. The department is growing, it's getting strong. We have approximately 25 majors in the department. As I said, we're going to graduate 3 in May, and then in August we'll graduate another 3, and then possibly another 2 in December. So we're pretty much online in terms of meeting our goals and objectives for graduations.
Dr. AAl-Hadid, what we'd like to do today is to, as we indicated earlier when we talked about the topic today, is to talk about the African in the New World. And of course, you certainly understand that when we talk about the African in the New World, we're talking about primarily the Americas, North America and South America. But very few people tend to connect the existence of Africans in South America with the existence of Africans in North America. And so let's have you to, first of all, talk about the African in the New World. That is, to give us some information relative to him, his very presence in the New World, and then to sort of zero in during the rest of the program on his existence in South America, and then his existence in North America, perhaps if you want to make a comment, however you wish to do it. But essentially, that's the kind of idea that these are the ideas that we want to try to introduce this morning and to have you to talk about.
Well, let me just start in terms of a baseline. Our very department, the Department of Africana Studies, is premised on that very idea, that the African world, the community, is divided into the African continent and the diaspora. As you well put it, most of the diaspora, at least in the Western world, tend to be in the New World, which would include South America, the Caribbean, and we might also include Canada in that configuration, as well as North America. And what we have to realize, and we do this in our department, we offer African language, Kiswahili, Yoruba, and Arabic, and at the same time, our majors are required to take French, Spanish,
Good. Okay.
in addition to English. And what that says for us is the fact that we have a lot of our people in South America who do not speak English, they speak Spanish. In Brazil, they do not speak English, they speak Portuguese. And then you find the same phenomenon in the Caribbean. So it's very important for us to understand that we have people of African descent throughout the Caribbean and South America. Let me just take maybe two as illustrations, or maybe two or three as illustration. Let's start first of all with Haiti. Haiti became a black republic, the first black republic in the Western Hemisphere in 1804. Toussaint Louverture, Desmond and Boukman, Dessalines rather than Boukman, fought against Napoleon's finest army and created a black republic. That movement in Haiti sort of inspired the abolitionist movement, at least the rebellions on the part of people such as Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, and they always tried to keep Africans who were in captivity in North America from knowing about the Haitian Revolution because they did not want it to inspire. But nevertheless, people such as Nat Turner and others got wind of what had happened in Haiti, and they began to revolt and start insurrections. So Haiti represents a flashpoint for that whole understanding of the Caribbean. Another country that we should also know, in Haiti they speak Creole and French because there was the last colonizer were the French. At first they were colonized by the Spanish, and then the French came in and colonized Haiti. Jamaica is also very important. Jamaica is important because of the Maroons. These were the brothers and sisters that got off the ships and ran into the mountains and established African cultures there after they escaped from the plantation. In fact, many of them didn't even work on the plantations, and some escaped and went into the mountains. And then we also know Jamaica from the emergence of Marcus Garvey, who came to this country at the turn of the century, and the age of Garvey was after the age of Washington, which ended about 1915, and then Garvey sort of took over from that point, went primarily through the 1920s. But Garvey traveled throughout the Caribbean. He traveled throughout South America, and he saw all of these African people there, and he asked the question, where's the black man's government? And he said, then he started thinking, he said he wanted to develop a powerful connection with Africa. He wanted to organize all people of African descent in South America, North America, Canada, and the Caribbean. Let's turn sort of quickly to Brazil.
Good, very good.
Brazil is a very interesting country. Brazil has approximately 160 million people. Now, it's somewhat difficult to go into Brazil. In fact, if you look in the almanac and look under Brazil and look at the ethnic groups, you'll find that you only have Brazil, 6% of Brazilians self-identify as Africans. A lot of them see themselves as mestizos, as mulattoes, because in Brazil, there's a whole different configuration. They'd like for people to believe that they do not have a democracy based on race. But when you look at the color of the people, it is obvious that they are of African descent. So if you look at it from a color standpoint, there are about 60 million people of clearly of African descent, uncontaminated of African descent in Brazil.
In spite of what they might, how they might describe themselves as
say. Exactly, because the Portuguese had an assimilationist policy. It was okay to marry a Portuguese, and they had a different, and also had the Catholic Church was involved. But in the English-speaking countries, they practice strict segregation. So people in Jamaica and North America and Trinidad were not able to assimilate into the culture the way they did in places such as Brazil under the Portuguese. So that's why a lot of the people there in Brazil think of themselves more as Portuguese than they think of themselves as even indigenous Indians or Africans, because of that strong identification with Portugal. And you will find the same phenomenon in a lot of the Spanish-speaking areas when they too were allowed to assimilate into the Spanish culture. So it's somewhat different from those of us that are in what we call Anglophone, of the English-speaking part of the world. The Francophones and those that speak Portuguese and Spanish have a whole different idea about their identity because they were allowed to assimilate.
And let me interrupt here, Dr. AAl-Hadid, and to break for this